Good afternoon, everybody. Um, so today we're going to talk about opportunities in education technology, specifically focused on Latin America. And just to set the scene and just give you a few sort of opening remarks about the Latin American market, then I'll turn to the three panelists here to introduce themselves. I just want to let you and remind you that the Latin American market is a population of around over 400 million people, which is larger than the US. It's a landscape where the social and mobile environment is extremely popular and ubiquitous within there, leapfrogging things like the laptop as a sort of medium to transform content and just what they use. And quite interestingly, there are two major markets. There's a sort of Brazilian economy, which has a single currency and share language, and obviously a curriculum that goes across the entire country, but also the Pacific Alliance, which also shares a language and has educational uniformity across those different regions. So with that said, I just want to allow each individual to introduce themselves, and Jacob, over to you.
Thank you very much. My name is Jacob Vern. I'm the founder and CEO of EduMe. We're a mobile-first EdTech company focused on emerging markets. We are headquartered in London, but we have a bigger office in Colombia, so that's probably what I will be talking about primarily in this context. We deliver language tutoring, specifically English language learning, in a mobile-first approach in Latin America. We also have a product for mobile corporate training for mobile workforces. And our focus in everything that we do is very much personal attention to the end user of any of our services. And that goes all the way from customer service to personalization of the technology to how the tutors are interacting with their students.
Good morning. My name is Miguel Bruckner. I'm from Uruguay, the smallest country probably between what we are here. I run a program called Plan Ceibal. This is a program that started 9 years ago, by which every student and every teacher in public education has today a laptop or a tablet. We cover from first grade to 10th grade. We have internet in all the schools. We have fiber optic in all the urban schools. We have an incredible infrastructure. And on top of that, we've been building for the last 5 years different platforms for learning and for the students, like mathematics, learning and comprehension, English, robotics, programming. So my organization is government-owned. It's run on the private, with private laws, but it's government-owned. And basically, we had the challenge from going from the ideas to the practical life, and to see how we can use technology either to improve pedagogy or how we can use technology to solve problems where people cannot solve them, like the lack of teachers or the lack of certain materials. So it's a challenging thing to understand that technology is just a means of doing things. It's not the main course of the things. The main course is how we improve pedagogy so that everyone learns better and we go to other skills than we have today.
Hi, my name is Nikita Shower. I'm from Brazil. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you. I come from a country that has 60 million students, 50 million K-12 between private and public, around 7 to 8 million higher education students. It's a country that, interesting, has the highest number of hours of access of internet, with the average of usage of students 10 years plus, with 83% of them accessing once a week, comparing to the world average of 59%. And I have the privilege to, together with other two founding partners, have a company in Brazil called EXP Educational Intelligence, which we deal with several projects in Brazil for K-12 higher ed and English. And I think the environment for technology is already there. Penetration of mobile phones and internet is established. The challenge is how to make that happen in the classroom and how to engage teachers. I think that's a little bit what we want to talk today.
So, thank you very much, everybody, for introducing yourselves. I guess the first topic that we want to just touch upon is, what are the sort of challenges that are being faced within the education system, and how do we overcome these barriers? And how is technology part of the answer? Henri, do you want to start?
Okay, as I see it, particularly, we are at the moment in Brazil. It's a continental-sized country, so technology is a must. It's impossible to reach all the areas, all the 5,700 municipalities in Brazil if you're not linked through a technology hub. The second thing is that internet is an access that is getting to the schools. The question is, getting to the school is the stage one. Getting inside the classroom is the stage two. So if we look into the average Brazilian school penetration of internet, and I'm not talking about broadband, I'm talking about the average of 3.6 megabytes, it's 62%. Private schools go up to 91%, and public schools are rough at 43%. Keep in mind that we have 39,600 private schools and 147,000 public schools. So it's a huge market. It's a lot of ground to cover. The challenges of the barrier, in starting with connectivity, we're going to be solving that shortly with mobile phones. But there are two things which always, when I talk to people in Brazil, to schools, I make a joke. There are two specific places where you can't use mobile phones. One is the airplane, and the second is the classroom. So, and I'm telling them all the time that the airplane, they're about to solve that issue. The classroom, you're still struggling. And that brings us to another challenge and opportunity, which is the teacher, the role of the teacher. And in the next 5 to 10 years, we're going to see half of the teachers in Brazil retiring, which brings us the opportunity to have new digital native teachers in the classroom, and also the challenge of how to get them ready to be in front of students and perform properly.
I think we have different levels of challenges. The first challenge is political. Latin America has to understand that the infrastructure is a necessity, like water and like electricity. Some countries like Uruguay have adopted that. Some other countries are still discussing how to adopt it. But to have the infrastructure built in the country is a must. So people are working, private sector is very much working, the telephone companies are working on that. But the right of using it is something that's a political decision. It cannot be private sector, public sector. I mean, we assume that it's so important to have electricity in school as to have internet. In our experience in many schools, we put only that didn't have electricity, we don't put only first electricity for the internet and not for the school, because that was what the school thought it was more important. So one is how do you solve the technology issue in Latin is institutional. Many people believe that the solution is to bring that problem to the Minister of Education. That's a wrong thing. The ministers of education in Latin America are not designed for such a challenge. And some other people think that you can build it to the private sector, and again, it's wrong, because the education and the private sector have to work collaboratively, but the education is something that is, in most Latin America, run by the government or by the state. So that's a political challenge. There's a technology challenge that we live in the 21st century. We have many things in education in Latin America or in the world that are 19th century or 20th century. And some of the solutions that are put on over the table are 20th century solutions. And we cannot think anymore on 20th century solutions. We have to think on 21st century solutions. A lot of people talk about teacher training, and I always make a joke and I ask how many of you have been trained to use WhatsApp or to use Twitter or to use Facebook. We cannot do millions and millions of teacher training. Teachers are people like us. So we have to bring them technology, such as easy way to use, that it's adoptable very easy. And the third big challenge, and it's not in order just to give 3 challenges, is pedagogy. We cannot go on discussing technology without discussing pedagogy. The people that know pedagogy are the teachers. So if we want to have the teachers adopting technology, we have to give them the pedagogy that comes with this technology. If it comes, many times the technology itself doesn't bring anything, it's just technology. We spent years and years spending money in whiteboard that has zero pedagogy, and years we spend money on children learn to how to use a word processing or presentation. That's useless. So unless we understand that pedagogy is as central as technology, and we need to find a marriage between technology and pedagogy, the only thing we're going to do in the next years is install a lot of technology, people not use, believe that because we have technology we will have better results, and that will not be the case. Technology has to be an accelerator of pedagogy, not the other way around.
Yeah, I completely agree with that view as well, that the teacher needs always to be in the center of what you do, and technology is an enabler. And I agree with also the kind of adoption of technology. How do you do that in the best possible way and not maybe over-engineer things too much? For example, you mentioned, everyone can use WhatsApp and Facebook, and it's so simple, it's second nature, it's intuitive. For example, we started teaching language training through WhatsApp in Colombia. Everyone is used to that method already, and we've managed to work out a way where the pedagogy kind of fits the medium of delivery as well. Also, I think another challenge when it comes to transforming it or digitizing some of the education, of course, it very much comes from the need and desire of the individual. So even though there might be a disconnect from when you graduate from school and what you're supposed to know by the time you land a job, what we've seen there's typically a big kind of knowledge gap there that needs to be filled. In many cases, people are highly motivated once they have a higher disposable income to spend money on closing that gap themselves. We see people that they go into studies with a very long-term vision of being very committed to learning over a year. Let's say if it's a language and they study for more than 10 hours a month with a tutor, which is quite a significant commitment actually. And having said that, as with all kind of online behavior anywhere, and especially maybe in Latin America, and there are, I think countries in Latin America are very different in between, so I'm generalizing. You still need to bridge some of that fear of doing things online. So it's not the fact that things are available online or on mobile that people are suddenly going to start adopting them, because there's still a fear of doing things online. Is it as good? And also, if you're running a commercial business, then how are you going to charge for your services? It's not like in the UK where everyone has a payment card, a credit card. So that's, for example, for us is a challenge of kind of doing an e-commerce adoption in those markets.
So, and it sounds like there's quite a lot of use with it. Well, there's a general need to bring technology as a tool to sort of empower and amplify the effects of typical pedagogical approaches. Where do you think you can apply that best, and where are the sort of opportunities that lie within Latin America? You mentioned teacher shortages, or talking about English language training, or skill shortages. Where do you think you would advise companies going out to that? Where do you think there's interest and demand?
One thing that's important is that Latin America, by some reason, is the region where more programs were adopted to give devices to the children. Probably because it's a middle-income region, so in Brazil, in Argentina, in Uruguay, in Venezuela, in Nicaragua, many places, the children have already devices. That's very important. I think that, for example, when you take maths, I'll tell you the example of what we are doing in Uruguay. We have one math platform called Bettermarks that has 100,000 exercises, and it's adaptive. So that's a tool that all the country can use. Now the teachers realize that they don't have to think any longer on putting an exercise because it's there, 100,000. So the weight on the back of the teacher is much less because they can go into a series of exercising of any of the subjects. So that's a very big help when you go into helping the teacher. And it's very important because that personalizes also the education, because the teacher at the end of the day knows exactly how well did his student do, how much did he advance, and where he has his problems. So there's an issue where technology is just helping the teacher to solve other things like personalization of education and the appropriation of the students of liking to do maths. And for the children, when they do this maths through the web or through a game type of thing, they don't have the eyes of the teacher when they make mistakes. And that helps them also in their motivation of doing. We use very much the tournaments, the soccer tournaments as prizes for people doing maths, right? So whenever, every 3 months we do something that the prize is something for the school and something for the teacher. And the kids get very much involved. On the other hand, how do we do English? We decided that because we don't have enough teachers, we put fiber optics to the urban schools and video conference equipment, very high quality video conference, and the teachers are overseas, right? The teachers are in the UK, the teachers are in Philippines, the teachers are in Argentina, and we have today now around 4,000 groups a week being taught by a teacher overseas. Once a week and twice a week they do with the computers. And they're learning English. We have an external evaluation to see how much they're learning. In that case, the only thing technology is doing is bridging the gap of not having teachers and starting to look for teachers all around the world. So we could discuss different type of examples. But the main question is, what problem do we want to solve? And then see how technology can help us solve the problem. Not the other way around. Let's put technology and see what is the problem. No. When you need, books is something very important. So we buy the rights of the books and we put them in the devices of the student. The book is free. That is much, much, much cheaper for us than buying physical books, right? So every child in the country, no matter what's his economic situation, has reading books and textbooks for free by us. But that is not new pedagogy. That's basically equality. Everyone has the right to a book. So now you have to work with the teachers for reading, for comprehension, for testing.
Thank you. And I guess what's really interesting is where the demand is coming for learning. So it's not just in the K-12 market, but also, I guess, Jacob, you can talk a bit about the professional learning market and where you're seeing demand come from.
Yeah, sure. And it actually goes for both the corporate learning market, but also our students, our private students for language tutoring that come out. They're typically between 20, 35 years old. They have a long-term commitment, like I mentioned before, to study. 80% of them have some kind of higher level education. A majority of people do that to improve their job situation, directly or indirectly. It's quite an urban target audience, so in that sense it's very different, and these people spend several $100s on studying a language over 12 months. So that's a demand from a growing middle class that are becoming increasingly tech savvy. And just to Miguel's point, I agree. I think one of the main benefits of internet is breaking down the barriers of distribution in any sector that you've looked at. So one way, of course, is to open up a bigger supply of teachers that don't need to be in the same place as the student. And to that point, when it comes to the mobile corporate training, we are focused on large corporations with a dispersed workforce, and there's an increasing number of those companies in the world. I think one stat that came out of this conference is that by 2020, 50% of the US workforce is going to be part of the freelance economy. I think it's 40% in the UK by 2020. Those are the kind of companies that we're working with to help them train their workforce, onboard, create engagement, loyalty, consistency, productivity. And typically the roles those people have is perhaps in a directly, indirectly revenue generating position. So it benefits them, but it also then benefits their employer.
Thanks. And I just want to ask one more question before we open up the floor for Q&A. But just for businesses out here and organizations that are looking to expand out to sort of Latin America, Enrique, maybe you're best placed to answer this. What do you think the sort of partnership opportunities or expansion opportunities are that are out there?
I think if we look into Brazil, it's one of the largest countries, the largest country in Latin America, or one of the largest worldwide. I'm thinking about a country that has severe needs of quality. So how you improve quality. We are based in Sao Paulo, but Sao Paulo is an island if you compare to the rest of Brazil. There are certain areas, if you want to reach there, as my colleagues were just mentioning, technology is the way to get the best professionals into very remote areas, so that's one of the ways. The other thing, there is a demand already there. If you ask students, give you an example, what's the best way they learn? They're going to tell you it's not in the classroom anymore. They go on YouTube. They just find out the ways to learn. We are at the moment working on a project on corporate side for education where to reach 1.5 million people all over the country with an age of 50 plus, most of them highly finished the high school. So it's a very unique kind of population that's in need of education, and we're using mobile technology. We are thinking it, the complete course, the complete pedagogy, knowing, as Miguel mentioned, seeing the issue and trying to find a solution for that. So we had to rethink the entire pedagogy to address that market. And when I'm telling you that that population is already using it, because we are one of the countries that most use WhatsApp, and we are thinking about WhatsApp to reach those ladies. Most of the time they are this completely out of reach of a classroom, out of reach of teachers, but we still can have them getting improvements on their skills through technology with an adapted pedagogy. So we have been working in different projects in Brazil, so if anyone wants to talk about K-12, higher ed, and English, I'll be here later on. It would be a pleasure. How to enter in the market. It's a potential, huge market. It just needs a little bit more time for us to get the results. Nothing happens very fast in education. I think you guys already figured that out. So adoption in schools takes normally 12 to 18 months. You have to change the whole environment, and it's something that will come with a time. It will come from pressure from students and from the society. And I think we are at this moment where the pressure is piling up, and we have great opportunities for businesses in Brazil.
I think Latin America has a very, very, very big opportunity that you can leapfrog many of the things that shouldn't be done from the last 50 years of the 20th century. So the governments are interested in doing things that can use to what technology can give you today. So it's a big advantage not to go to skip some of the steps that other people did. So I think Latin America is a huge market. It's not a simple market, but it's a very interesting one.
And does anyone have any questions? But maybe Jacob, you could actually just give your experience of actually expanding from a London-based business into Colombia and how you did that.
Yeah, I guess that's very much predicated by the fact that we are part of a large telecom operator with an emerging market footprint. So they're very strong in Latin America, in Colombia especially, but also in Africa. And they were basically looking to offer additional content to their subscriber base. And they realized that the highest priority among their subscriber base is education and professional development. So not a big surprise there, but even more important than all the other things that they thought was super interesting, like video or music or things. So when it really comes down to it, that's important. So we've kind of scaled together with them. We have this office in Colombia. I think another good thing about Latin America, or if I talk about Colombia, is access to really, really great people and highly skilled people. So I think growing out of there is also a very good opportunity, and we're growing much faster in Colombia than we're doing in London, for example, and we'll never grow as fast here now that we see what we can do over there, and you're also much closer to the market.
Did anyone have any questions that they wanted to ask? There's probably a couple questions we can reach out.
A theme I noticed came up with most of you was actually ELT. You all mentioned language teaching at some point. To what degree would you say that's sort of a dominant part of EdTech in Latin American markets?
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, there are a few, and Pearson, of course, with your background, they are quite strong there as well. EF, Open English is another strong one. but I still feel that it's, very, very far from being penetrated, because we see very strong growth and we're quite new in the market. So there is certainly, if you take that perspective of what we saw this morning, of how big is the digital part of the education market, it's minuscule still. So most of it is still bricks and mortar, but English is good because it does give you an immediate kind of reward in terms of job opportunities.
Regarding Brazil, give you a bold number. People at the age and financial capabilities of paying for ELT, we're talking roughly of 23 million people. So it's a population that has never been exposed. Only 5% of the Brazilian population has been exposed to English learning somehow, with proficiency just a percentage of that, so around 10%, so 0.5% of the Brazilian population is fluent in English. So out of the 204 million, you come down to a little bit over 1 million or so. So we still have a huge market to be addressed. And the advantage of English is that you don't have to adapt it to the local content. You could use it, you just have to find the right framework is it the European Common Framework or any other framework, and you can make the product travel all over the world, all over Latin America at least, and it's easier to be implemented.
Were there any other questions?
Thanks. Yeah, I've previously heard a couple of times that across Latin America that teachers' unions are often quite challenging to work with. And I was interested that none of you mentioned that very explicitly at the start. So I'd be interested in knowing how you work to get the unions and the teachers on board.
Teacher unions are unions.
Yeah, so how you get the teachers and the teacher unions on board.
I mean, the problems, you have to confront them. I mean, many of the things that the teacher unions discuss are valid things that the system has not solved, and many other things are not so valid. So you have to make them participate in the stages where you are doing. The only thing, you have to be very clear on where you are going. I mean, we had, and we still have some problems with some of the issues, because obviously the moment in a country that you decide to put teachers from Argentina, Colombia, the teacher union says, wait, and we asked, do we have the teachers? If we have qualified teachers, obviously it's preferable to use Uruguayan teachers. So the same thing happens in where's the data, if you're using a platform, why did we choose this platform? So whenever we're making some strategic decision, we try to bring the teachers into the discussion on the unions, but it's part of the ecosystem. I don't know how many of you have seen the film Waiting for Superman, right? It's a US film about education. I thought I was watching a Uruguayan film about education, and probably each of you, when you watched it, you thought it was your country. But that's part of the, I mean, teachers' union, the conservative mind of education, the low risk of taking, the low risk of the authorities about taking risk in education is part of the problems that are to bring that. I mean, if we analyze education and technology, it's the area or the field where less influence has happened in the last 50 years, right? Technology has influenced our life much, much, much more than in education. Part of the issues are the conservative mind, the low risk, the risk aversion by the education authorities, the problems of the relationship with the unions. But unless we change all these issues, we will not change the rest of the things.
I guess that segues to our sort of last minute, sorry to interrupt. But are there any sort of key takeaways that you want everybody to walk away with from each of you?
I think regarding teacher, I think teacher unit and the opportunity in Brazil, we're seeing in the next 5 to 10 years, 1 million teachers retiring. So no matter what the teacher union just says, we don't accept people going through the pathway for teaching that there's not the traditional 4 years of college plus 3 years of trainee or preparatory period. They have to find new ways. We have to get those teachers prepared into the classroom. So the pressure will come when we have to replace 1 million teachers of 2.1 million teachers in Brazil. that will put pressure also in a union. And that's a great opportunity. When we think about technology, when we think about overcoming one of the barriers, connectivity is something we'll get. But the change of mindset, that conservative approach, will have a huge change in the next 5 to 10 years. And that will change the scope completely. And it won't be a slow change. It will be an overnight change, because they will retire. It's by law, and that's the opportunity in Brazil. I'll see technology playing a big role once you have 1 million new digital native teachers in the classroom, and the right product, the right pedagogy to solve the issues we're facing in Brazil.
I think my main takeaway is that it is a huge opportunity. Internet is kind of democratizing education, so everyone can have access to it. I think the willingness is certainly there. The ability to, if it's in case of private education, the ability to pay for it is increasing rapidly as well. Mobile internet penetration is now around 50% in Latin America and growing rapidly. So that's a great way of reaching more people and getting access to high quality content and learning. But of course, and I agree with Miguel, I think the teachers are always at the center of this, or the learning design and pedagogy is always at the center, and technology is a great enabler.
Great, and I guess the three of you will be around here if anyone wants to meet any of them. But I guess to summarize, it's a large population with sort of a great need for businesses to go out there, a lot of opportunity in terms of expanding, and here are some real applications of businesses doing that.